Hello there. Can you, welcome.
Hi.
This is the new edition of talking to our listeners and our viewers. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your personal story and about cancer awareness and cancer?
No problem. I'm 39 years old. I live in Manchester. I have a coming up now 22-year-old daughter. I have a 18-month-old granddaughter. I'm married, and I am a fully qualified and practicing psychotherapist. My cancer journey started late December 2017 when I found a lump in my right breast. I decided to avoid going to the doctors for about 2-3 weeks. I finally plucked up the courage to go. I'd been for tests before, so I didn't really think much about it, to be honest. I just thought it's going to be me panicking because my mum's actually had breast cancer as well. So I went for the tests. I went up to the hospital, and lo and behold, it was cancer. But the worst was yet to come. So it wasn't the actual cancer that caused the trauma, it was the treatment. And I do feel like it was a traumatic experience, and people that do deal with cancer treatment do come out with it with some sort of PTSD, because it turns a person's life upside down. But not only the person that's been diagnosed, it's the people that love them too.
Part of our conversation is to encourage people to get tested and to recognize the signs and the symptoms.
Yeah.
So there is, like you described, Jean, there's a journey, there's a before, then there's always the during, and then there's the after. So
The beginning, middle, and end, isn't there?
yeah, exactly, Jean. So you share what you feel that would be helpful, because I think it's partly our job is to raise awareness, is to encourage that conversation.
One thing that popped up for me was that I was 37 years old. So, yeah, I'm only 37. It only happens to like older people. This is what was going on in my mind. So that was one of my thought processes, was even though, well, when I found the lump, I was actually showing my daughter how to check for breast cancer because she was 18 at the time. And we used to have what we call snuggle nights. And we'd sit in bed and we'd eat rubbish and would watch rubbish on TV, and would ask any questions that we might have about each other, no judgment, talking about our worries, fears. And my daughter just said to me, she looked at me and she says, "Mum, how do you check for breast cancer?" So fully dressed, I was like, you go like this and you use the flat of your hand and you check all the way up to your armpit. And then when I got onto this one, I thought, what the hell's that? It was the lack of education.
Okay.
I feel it was me not being educated in, do you know what? It doesn't matter your age. I remember going into the hospital when I was going to get checked, and there was a 15-year-old girl there that had been diagnosed. 15. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not too young.
Yeah.
And then obviously I got the news that I got, but it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are. Men can get breast cancer. It's about raising that awareness that you're never too young. It can happen to anybody, especially the day and age that we're in now. We can look at diet, lifestyle.
Some of the campaigns around breast cancer awareness is, touch, look, feel, knowing that that's a very simple messages, but how they are shared and conversation started about it. That's the important part. I think the fact that you're talking to your daughter about having a conversation about everything, no holds barred. It's important.
Yeah, me and my daughter are very honest in our approach to everything. She talks to me about literally everything, which sometimes I don't want to hear. But to be honest, if she hadn't have asked me that question, I wouldn't have checked, because it was the lack of education for me. It was a lack of knowledge for me is the reason why I didn't check. So, the look, feel, the checking and all that, I wouldn't have done that otherwise. I don't look in the mirror and check if they look right, or never did before. Now I'm just like, okay, once a month I do check.
It's about those simple, very understandable checks, isn't it? It's like you said, it's like, and also the balance of it, you know, like I said, you don't want to become so gripped with every single thing is something that's wrong, but knowing your body is fundamentally the answer in this conversation,
100%,
isn't it?
100%.
It's knowing yourself, knowing what's normal for you, and knowing what to do as a result. I think that's the other part of it, which is once you found that, you know, you went to the GP, and that was the stage where really going forward and getting a medical kind of response.
Yeah. That was the biggest thing, was getting the courage to go and get it checked. And yeah, like you say, it is knowing your own body, because some women do have lumpy breasts. You know, it's knowing the difference. So I think if we can educate as many ladies and men as possible, you know, it's about putting the knowledge out there, knowing the facts, knowing the information, so you can be fully informed to make that judgment call to go to the GP.
Yeah.
And to make that phone call. You know, I'm scared, I found a lump, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, it's not always about just running straight to the GP, it's making that phone call as well, speaking to somebody close to you, you know, I'm scared, what should I do? Will you come with me? Is having that support as well.
Yeah. And in terms of that support, because I think the immediate response is the GP, but also going to different sources of information, looking, you know, the NHS, the Breast Cancer Now, those reputable
centers are amazing for that. When I was diagnosed, I remember coming out of because I had to go back twice. I remember coming out the first time thinking, that's it, I'm going to die. I thought my whole life was over, and it still upsets me now, but the biggest thing was my daughter. You know, not only, you know, of me passing and not being there to protect her, but what if she gets it as well? It's having that knowledge, knowing what to check for. And if you're not sure, ask.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I suppose that's and as you kind of alluded to earlier, that your body is a temple, and it's about trying to make, you know, doing the right thing by it, you know. And I'm conscious as well, as I'm getting older, you know, eating, sleeping well, exercising, you know, and all those balancing is in balance, isn't it? It's like nobody says you can't have all that fruit or all that alcohol or whatever it might look like for you. All it says is about just keep everything in moderation and keep it in balance.
Yeah, before I wasn't doing that. I was eating rubbish, wasn't going to the gym, wasn't exercising, stress levels were through the roof. I was doing a master's course. I was having 2 jobs. I was looking after my mum, because I'm a full-time carer for my mum. I was looking after my daughter, running a house. One of my jobs was nights. It was literally, I was burning the candle at both ends, so I was gonna burn out.
It's not that we'd have to be body beautiful or try to be things, and we are conscious of our body image, and I think it's partly it doesn't help, you know. And
I had chocolate for breakfast yesterday.
I had a chocolate croissant this morning, Jean. There was a choice between a satsuma and a chocolate croissant. What do I go for?
Chocolate every time.
Yeah, every time. Jean, I suppose the other part of the story in what you're describing as well is that once you were diagnosed, this was about the system, what describe what kicked in. And I know that there are possibly good and bad things that happen to people as a result of being diagnosed and what goes forward. So share us the things that people can look out for, make sure that they're not falling into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't fault the Victoria unit at Oldham whatsoever, where I was diagnosed. Now, when I was there and the diagnosis, the surgeon, Miss Bramley, that was there, she was phenomenal. She sat on the bed at the side of me. She held my hand. I've never known anything like it. Now, chemo isn't nice anyway. It literally took everything, you know, my hair, my eyelashes, my eyebrows. Now, anybody who knows me, you know, my hair was my thing. It was waist length. But it is what it is. So I decided against like the cold cap and stuff. They gave me all the options. They were brilliant like that. And I've finished the first 3. And then the last 3 was about to start. Now, the last 3 is something called Toxotere. Now, with this, it is a really, really powerful one. I actually went into A&E and I was like, I'm really, really struggling. And the doctors were good at first. They put me in a separate room And when I went to see the doctor, and this is on my medical file, I says, I'm really struggling at the moment. I don't feel right. I've got stomach ache, earache, everything hurts. So I went home. Within 24 hours, I was back at the hospital and they admitted me and I was on antibiotics for intravenously. I was in a bad way, a really bad way. Now, when I spoke to my oncologist and told them this, she hit the roof. I ended up with a water infection, an ear infection, a chest infection, and both of my eardrums were perforated. And one infection while on chemotherapy can be, fatal. And I had 3. So I was sat downstairs. My husband got me like a heated blanket and a reclining chair. And I don't think I moved out of it for days after I came home. The chest infection, I couldn't breathe. The water infection, I couldn't pee. I couldn't go to the toilet the other way. Sorry to be crude, because I was really constipated because I didn't have the right laxatives, because the steroids that I was on makes you really constipated, and they wait until you're really constipated before they go, oh yeah, that's what that does. We'll give you a laxative. They should give you all that beforehand.
Yeah.
But the doctors themselves in the Victoria unit was amazing. But the external support that I had none. So some of the support afterwards as well, once I'd finished, I can't remember them ever offering me any counselling.
Okay.
And what they were supposed to have done was given me an iPad at the end and done a questionnaire on how my mental health was. I was never given that. So I ended up on sertraline, an antidepressant. Now, qualified therapist, you'd think, I'd know how to deal with that, but it's a complete different story. So I've always said, at the Victoria unit, the doctors had me from the neck down, but nobody was taking care of me from the neck up. And that was one of the biggest challenges. That, with the toxicity and the mental health side of it, that was where my challenges lay. And luckily enough, I am a very, very strong person. I was driving back up to the hospital because obviously, I'd been looking so much. I found something. I've gone back up to the hospital. I was up there like every 3 weeks because the mental health side of it, nobody was taking care of me. I was screwed, basically. And I was driving up to the hospital and was like, I can't go through all that again. And I remember driving past and looking at a tree. Now, anybody who knows me, I have such a zest for life. So for me to have a suicidal thought was like, oh my God, something needs to change here. And I pulled up in a car park and I was crying and I had to ring the doctors, like, I don't know what to do. They didn't tell me that my hormone levels was going to drop to such a low level that it was going to affect my mental health. So again, it was not given all the facts.
Hopefully that through this conversation, people know what to look out for, but also what to ask for, but also what to expect. Expectations
As time went on, obviously, I'm in there every morning during the week for a certain amount of length of time. You get to know them, and they do be more attentive as they go on. But I remember lying on the bed, tears are streaming. When I say bed, I mean metal plate, and tears are streaming down my eyes. And not once did they come over and say, "Are you okay?"
Okay.
So I don't know whether they didn't notice because they were just trying to concentrate, or whether they were that used to it. Don't get me wrong, like I say, they're really, really sweet. They come out, are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. But when you're in there, it's like their focus is just on getting them. And I understand that. I feel personally how things can change is after the first one, the nurse is doing a check-in. How was that? Was there anything that we could have done differently? Are you okay? Do you need a check-in with a counsellor? Any of that. But it wasn't. It was the chat at the beginning. Have you got any questions? Of course, I've not got any questions. In we go, a month's worth, and off you go. And I remember the worst thing that was ever said, and it's very, very simple, is, we'll see you in 12 months. That scared, sorry about my language, the shit out of me. Absolutely scared the life out of me, because I was like, what now? That was the worst part, because I describe it as like you're on a conveyor belt. You get the diagnosis, you go through the treatment, you do this, you do this, you're getting advised every step of the way. And then they go, bye. I just nearly died. My life was nearly taken from me. It affected everyone around me. And now you're saying, see you in 12 months. What the hell?
Mm.
And that's where the mental health thing kind of kicked in.
Mm.
And before, everything went really, really fast.
Mm.
From going in for the doctors and the doctor having a feel and going, oh, we'll just send you up to Oldham just to make sure. She was brilliant, my doctor. But from there, it was just like bish, bash, bosh. And I suppose sometimes they do have to be like that, but I feel like they could have made it a bit more person-centered. And I think it all depends on who you get.
Yeah, and it is, it shouldn't be a lottery in relation to who you get, but there is an element of that. But I suppose creating a quality of, or a standard of care and a quality of information that then helps in terms of each person's journey in wherever place they are on that journey. But I suppose this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Jane, and so our job is to get that message out there about early detection, what to look out for. So are there any kind of message that you would like to share and get that out there so that we help?
Yeah, my advice would be make sure that you are checking once a month and checking in the right way. So not while you're, sat on the loo having a quick fondle, while you're in the shower, lift your arm above your head, use the flat of your hand. Don't dig with your fingers because you'll find all kinds of stuff. So using the flat of your hand, going right up into your armpit, underneath, round. If there's anything that you go, that's not quite right, go and get it checked. It's about being body aware, lifting up your arms and checking in the mirror. If there's anything that you're not sure of, discoloration, the way it looks, whether it's like orangey peely kind of, it could be just cellulite. It could be that, we've eaten a few too many cakes, not a problem. Just go up and let the doctor tell you it's because a few too many cakes. If there's anything that just looks at, because that's why I say check once a month, because you can see once. Now, if you're checking every week, you're not going to see a difference. But if you check once a month, you'll be able to see if something's not quite right or feel that's not quite right. And try and do it not around the time that you are due on your period, because your boobies get lumpy and sore.
Very, very good to hear, Jane. Excellent messages. And with that, can I say thank you, Jane, for taking the time and for sharing your personal story.